Here in the US, it is almost time to change the clocks. So this week's shoresh has to do with change, but it also has meanings of 2, years, and crimson. What do they all have in common? Maybe nothing, but they all have the same shoresh. Welcome back to Hebrew Vocab Boost. I'm Sapir, and today I'm talking about the shoresh Shin Nun Yod, which some might call Shin Nun Hey. If you're not sure why the last letter might be Yod or Hey, I explained this in my Zayin Hey Yod video a few weeks back, so you can check that out. This week's shoresh seems to have 3 or 4 meanings, and I'm really leaning towards 3. There's a meaning of crimson, which pretty much stands on its own, and a meaning of year, which also is clearly separate from the others. But there's also a meaning of 2 and a meaning of change. And at first glance, these look totally unrelated. But doing this video made me see a connection between these 2 meanings. And so I'll talk about that when I get to that section. But first, let's get this one out of the way. Crimson. It's the simplest because it's basically one word, shani. The vast majority of mentions of shani in the Tanakh are giving instructions on how to make tapestries for the tabernacle while the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness. They used threads of crimson along with other colors. In modern times, it still means crimson or scarlet, and I have never heard it in the wild except for as a woman's name. I personally know a Shani, and I've seen and heard of a lot of other Shanis, so I think it's a pretty popular name. All right, our second meaning is 2, and also change. Oi. So these are the 2 meanings that I now pretty much see as one. But in the beginning, I really thought they were 2 separate meanings. I mean, how is change related to the number 2? Well, in the Tanakh, there are many times when the word that means second, as in first, second, third, is translated as other or another, and an other thing is a different thing. And so now we've got the meaning of difference or being different. And if something starts one way and then becomes different, it undergoes a change. And this is how semantic change happens. Meanings of words can change or widen or narrow, and sometimes the older meanings stick around. And so then you end up having 2 words in a language that seem to be so different, but they come from a similar origin. And all of this semantic expansion happened before biblical times because all of these meanings are attested in the Tanakh. So, of course, our first word is shnayim, and its alternate forms shtayim, shnei, and shtei. All of these words mean the cardinal number 2. As I hope you already know, the ones place numbers all have a masculine and a feminine form. So shnayim is the masculine and shtayim is the feminine. And if you have trouble remembering which one's masculine, which one's feminine, remember that a lot of feminine words end with a taf, and shtayim has a taf in it. Now, in modern Hebrew, if the following word is a noun, then we use the shortened forms shnei and shtei. So if we're going to say 2 books, we would say shnei sfarim. 2 girls, shtei yeladot. And shnaim and shtayim are just used when there is no noun directly after. So very often we answer a question, how many kids do you have? 2. You could say shnayim. Now, in modern Hebrew, these rules about when to use the shorter forms or the longer forms are very strict. But in the Tanakh, I noticed that even though all four forms are used, they are kind of used interchangeably. Now, I want to mention that if the number is not exactly two, then the number word does not get shortened. So, for example, if I want to say that I have 22 dictionaries, I would not say Yeshli Esrim Ushnei Milonim, but rather Esrim Ushnaim Milonim, because it's 22, it's not two. As for the number 12, we have in the masculine, it is Shnem Asar, and in the feminine, it's Shtemesre. Now, this number can also use the short forms, shne and shte, with the personal endings. So we can have shnenu and shtenu to mean the two of us, shnechem and shtechen for the two of you, and shnehem and shtehen for the two of them. We also have in the Tanakh sheni and shenit, the masculine and feminine forms that mean second, as in first, second, third. And as part of this meaning of second in the feminine version, shenit, it can also mean a second time or another or even the other. And this is the first step in the root's journey towards the meaning of change. In modern Hebrew, the masculine ordinal number is still sheni, but the feminine is shniya. This word shniya can also be used to mean a second, as in a 60th of a minute. And there's an adjective, mishni, which means secondary. And before moving on to a bunch of uses of the ordinal number, I can't resist telling you that the 2 shekel coin is often referred to as the shnekel, combining shnaim and shekel. I mean, how adorable is that? So in modern Hebrew, there are all kinds of short phrases and expressions with this shoresh and the meaning of second or secondary. Of course, Yom Sheni literally means second day, and this is the way they refer to Monday, because it is the second day of the week. Beit HaMikdash HaSheni is the second temple, and I don't see this too often, but when I do, it's usually referring to in the times of the second temple. It's referring to those years that the second temple was around. An aftershock after an earthquake is a Re'idat Mishne. Re'idat Adama is an earthquake, so Re'idat Mishne is like a secondary earthquake. I've also heard Ivrit Kisafa Shniya, the teaching or learning of Hebrew as a second language. Bamakom Hasheni, that's in second place if somebody's in a competition. Milchemet Ha'olam Hashniya, that's World War II. Ein Shenilo or Ein Shenila. And this is a big compliment when somebody is really, really awesome, and so much so that there's not even a second place that comes anywhere close. And I mentioned earlier that shenit is often used in the Tanakh to mean other. And in modern Hebrew, I think the most common usage of this shoresh to mean other is when we're saying each other. So usually we start off a sentence, we put a verb, and then we want to say one another. And so we will say echad, meaning one, and then we use whatever proper preposition goes with that verb, and then we say hasheni. And this sounds kind of confusing, so I'm going to explain it with an example. So if I want to say we help each other, I would say anachnu ozrim echad lasheni. Literally, this means we help one to the second. Another time when we use sheni in modern Hebrew, but other in English is an expression mitzad sheni, which means on the other hand. So if we're talking about maybe two sides of an argument, you give the one and then you say mitzad sheni, and then you talk about the other side of the argument. And it means, well, on the other hand, it's blah, blah, blah. And now, from other, it's not too far a stretch to get the meaning of different or various. And in the Tanakh, we see shonim, which is used as a noun, meaning dissenters, as in people who have a different opinion. And then it's also used as an adjective with kelim. So I've seen it as mikelim shonim, and it gets translated as of varied design. And in modern Hebrew, we have shoneh, which means different and various, and it's with a neutral tone. So different, but not bad or good. So I've seen this as mechkarim shonim, meaning different researchers, like doing different studies. Bemekomot shonim b'medina, in different places in the country. Totzaot shonot, different results. So there's also a word meshuneh, which can be translated as strange, weird, or unusual. So this is definitely referring to a person or a thing or a situation that is different, and maybe not so much in a good way. And we have shoni, which means difference. And the final step so far in the semantic journey of this line of Shin Nun Yod is change, the process of becoming different. In the Tanakh, I only found 5 verses where this root looked to be related to the idea of change, and one of those was actually in Aramaic. So we have 2 different verbs. We have a hitpa'el verb, lehishtanot, meaning to disguise oneself or to be distorted. And then there's also a pa'al verb, and that one is used in the phrase lo shaniti. And this is the Lord telling the Israelites, I have not changed. So we'll move on to modern times. We have a hitpa'el verb lehishtanot and a pl verb leshanot. The pa'al verb has completely changed its meaning from that of changing to that of repeating, which we will talk about in the next section. So lehishtanot and leshanot both get translated into English as to change, but lehishtanot means to undergo a change oneself, and leshanot means to make a change to something else. So lehishtanot can mean that someone or something has physically or spiritually changed, or that just something has changed from someone's perspective. As in, I saw a sentence, Hanof hishtana, which means the view changed. And I came across this in a book about a girl and her family taking a ride to the country. So they started in the city, and then slowly but surely, Hanof hishtana, the view changed. And as for the PL leshanot, I've seen Melonot Chadashim Shinu et Ha'avira. New hotels have changed the environment or the atmosphere. And a big one I see a lot is Lo Meshaneh. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't make a difference if it's one thing or the other. Hishtanut and Shinui are the verbal nouns, the Shemot Peula, for Lehishtanot and Leshanot, respectively. I haven't had much opportunity to see Hishtanut in the wild, but I have seen Shinui quite a bit. I've seen Shinui Hamatzav, a change of situation. And there's also Shinui Ba'aklim, climate change. And then we also have Mishtaneh or Mishtana, which looks like the present tense of the Hipa'el verb, but it can also be used as an adjective, meaning varying. So I've seen it in the phrase be'utzma mishtana, which means of varying intensity. And for some super modern words, we have tashnit, which is a mutation. And we also have Shana'i, which is an electrical transformer. It changes something about the electricity. Sometimes it's the voltage, it gets changed, or sometimes it gets changed from alternating current to direct current. Okay. Wow, that was a long section. The last meaning is year, and we have many, many instances of shana and the plural shanim and the plural construct shne in the Tanakh. And shana also has a dual form, shnatayim. So in the Tanakh, the plural construct was shne, but in modern Hebrew, it's shnot. And there is also a singular construct form of shnat. And these construct forms are used not only when followed by a noun, as in Shnat Halimutim, the school year, Shnot Batzoret, the years of drought, but also when followed by a number. So we can say Bishnat Elef Chameot Veshivim, to say in the year 1970. Or we can also say Bishnot HaChamishim, to say in the 50s. And to talk about years we are in, we use Hashana to mean this year, and Bashana She'avra to say last year. Literally, it's the year that passed. And we also have Hashanim Ha'achronot, recent years, and Bashana Haba'ah, next year, which almost every Jewish person knows because we say it at the end of Passover and other holidays, Bashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And we even have a song, Bashana Haba'ah Neshev Al HaMirpeset. So this is an easy phrase to remember. So a couple phrases with the word Shana are, of course, Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, and it literally means head of the year, and it always falls in the fall. And on Rosh Hashanah, we usually say Shana Tova Umetuka. This is a greeting, a good and sweet year. Around December 31st, we would say Shana Ezrachit Tova, which means a good civil year, because this is the non-religious civil, this is the change of the non-religious civil calendar. And to say over the years, we would say Le'orech Hashanim. And a phrase that I love is Shana Me'uberet, which means leap year. But in the Hebrew calendar, this is a lot more complicated than in the Gregorian calendar because every month starts exactly on the new moon. So you can't just add a day to a month like we do in the Gregorian calendar. So every 3 years or so, we actually add an entire month. And so we have an Adar Aleph and an Adar Bet. And we call that year with an extra month of Adar, Ashana Me'uberet, which literally means a pregnant year because the year is pregnant with an extra month. Forgive me, I keep having to move because my light is fading. Of course, there's an adjective, shnati, meaning annual or yearly. And then there's a noun, shnaton, which means an annual, like a yearbook. And then there is a meaning of repeating, which I can't help but feel is related to the word year, because the seasons, the holidays, all kinds of things repeat year after year. This meaning is not really attested in the Tanakh. But as early as back in post-biblical times, we have words with this meaning. For one, we have two verbs, lishnot and lehishanot, which mean to repeat and to be repeated. And with these two verbs, we see that this shoresh is a rare one that actually has verbs in all 7 binyanim. This is actually pretty rare. And one very prominent word is Mishneh, which refers to the teachings of Jewish law that in biblical times were passed down orally from teacher to student in a repetitive fashion. And they were eventually written down in the early centuries of the first millennium CE. So that's it for today. I really feel like this shoresh shows just how versatile that Hebrew is, using different templates to make new words for new concepts like mutation and climate change out of ancient roots. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave them in the comments and I will do my best to respond. Hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to see more. Lehidraot bapa ama ba'a. See you next time.